Welcome back. You are tuned in to IBL, inspired by Onika, speaking on life and inspiring people. Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 20 of the IBO podcast. Thank you so much for being here today. So the title of today's episode is The Elements of Building Trust. So building trust, it just takes on a lot of meanings, and I'm talking about as it relates to both business relationships and also personal relationships, because you have to trust no matter what kind of situation that you're in. So let's start with the business aspect of things. So when you go into business with someone, you want to know that your business dealings are going to be kept confidential and that your business partner is not sharing information that could potentially be the downfall of your business, because if certain information gets into the wrong hands, then, like let's say information gets into the hands of a competitor, then you're wondering, okay, so our business is not taking off, we're not increasing our revenue, we're not getting new clients, what's going on? But yet you see that your competitor is flourishing, they're getting new clients, they're doing well. And it could be that, it's an inside job with the person that you're in business with. They're just telling certain things and sharing certain things that shouldn't be shared. So those are just some things to think about. You have to know that what you do in your business is going to be kept between those people involved, as so that you can keep things confidential and you can keep your strategies to yourself, and that it's not going to get out to places and people that shouldn't get out to. And then of course when you're in personal relationships and you're trying to build trust, the same thing goes. You want to know that the person who you're in a relationship with, it could be platonic, it can be a romantic relationship. You just want to know that if you are sharing certain sensitive information, that they're going to keep it confidential. They're not going to go running their mouth and sharing it with everyone else. You want to know that the person is reliable, and you just want to be able to trust them with certain things. Everyone is not, you shouldn't let everyone in on everything. And there are certain elements that help with building trust. For example, honesty, of course, we all know. Honesty really helps when you're building trust in any type of relationship. Also, consistency. When a person is consistent, then that also builds trust, because you don't have to second guess and wonder, like, okay, this person did this time, but are they going to keep it up? Are they going to continue? Also vulnerability. So if someone is showing vulnerability, that's a way of them kind of letting the walls down, kind of letting you in and seeing certain things about them that they don't necessarily share with everyone else. And that right there is kind of letting the other person or persons know that, you can trust them, because they're bold enough, they're brave enough, and they're showing that vulnerability. So that just, they're kind of letting those walls down and exposing something that may be near and dear to them. So vulnerability is definitely a part of, trusting a person. And then also when someone keeps their word, that's also an important part of building trust in a relationship. And all those things, are important. And, there's just other things too that go into when you're trying to build trust, because if you don't have that foundation of trust, then, things can, they can get a little crazy. They can go either way. So when you're building trust, it could be whether it's a new relationship, like a new business partnership. It could be if you are meeting someone new, or let's say if there was trust there, but that trust was broken and you're trying to rebuild it. So that might be the rebuilding part. That might be a little more challenging, but it's definitely possible. So, you just want to know that someone you are in business with, that they're trustworthy, and, things you can look at, like I said, are if they're consistent, if they keep their word, if they're honest, and also if they keep certain things, they know what to be quiet about and not to share with people outside of the business. And those are just very, very important things to know and to keep in mind. And like I said, if they're showing vulnerability, then, that's just because I feel like a lot of times we have a wall up, and, we're in our right to do that, especially with someone that we're not all that familiar with. So we kind of come into it with the wall up, but as time goes on and you get to know the person better, you get to spend time with them, and then you get to learn them, they get to learn you, and then okay, well, I can start to lower the wall a little bit and let the person in. And, that also is a great way to, exhibit that trust. And if someone is being vulnerable, then they feel like obviously that they can trust you if they're able to let the wall down, because we all use that. Well, not all, but a lot of us, we do use the wall as, protection. That's a way of protecting our heart, protecting what's near and dear to us. So we don't just let everyone in. We don't just let our guard or let our wall down for everyone. That's just not how that works. And it's just really, a defense mechanism. You hold up the wall and it's like, okay, then, the more you communicate with someone and you interact with someone, then, am I safe to let my wall down in front of this person? So, and ways that they can do that is by either sharing personal information, or they just may be showing vulnerable behaviors, and you may see a side of them that they've never shown before. Maybe they've come off as a very serious person. They never joke or laugh. And then as time goes on, you see that they get just a little more relaxed. They're laughing more, they're talking more, or they're sharing certain things about themselves that they may have never shared with you. So those are some ways that you know that the person is showing vulnerability, and that, they're showing you that you can trust them. And, you can just go from there. You can decide if this is someone that you trust. And also another way that you know that you can trust someone is a person who keeps their word. So when they tell you they're going to do something and they actually follow through with it, then yeah, they're thorough. Because if they're not just, BSing you, they're not just telling you what you want to hear, or saying what they think you want to hear, or just telling you things just to shut you up, just to appease you. So if they actually tell you they're going to do something and they stick to that, they actually follow through, then this person, then they're trustworthy, because your word is very important. If you just lie to people and you just tell them one thing, but then you do something else, then more than likely that's not going to be a person that you're going to feel comfortable in. You're not going to believe what they're telling you. So, that's really not a trustworthy person if they're just kind of blowing smoke and they have no plans on following through with any of it, So that's one thing you want to look at. So more than likely a person that keeps their word, that's very important in both business and personal relationships. Definitely, definitely so. And also, so I'll go back to the confidentiality. So if you know in a business relationship that they are going to keep things between everyone private, then that's a great sign. That's a positive sign. And, again, you don't want certain information getting out to other people in the same industry who can use that against you. And then, that's the demise of your business right there. If that information gets into the wrong hands, it can severely affect the bottom line of your business. So outsiders, they may share this, with people who they know they don't want you to succeed in business. And, they use this to their advantage. And I know it sounds bad, but it does happen. It happens all the time, unfortunately, and then also confidentiality in personal or romantic relationships is a thing where you have to know that when you're sharing certain information with, your romantic partner, you have to know that it's going to stay with them, that they're not going to share it with other people outside of the relationship, because that kind of, it's just knowing that you're safe with that person and you're able to share certain information with them, and it's not going to go any further. You're going to say it to them and it's just going to stay between the two of you. So that's one thing that's important too. And that can be, and also that's just like, let's go back to, let's say a work example. You want to know that when you're having that trust between like employees, like if you have a teammate or, your colleague, and there are some things that the two of you are discussing, you want to make sure that they're not going to go and divulge certain information to someone that, you don't really want to know, just for various reasons. So you just have to be mindful of that and just know that if someone can keep things confidential, then, that's a person that's trustworthy. That's someone you can trust. Now, that just goes a long way, confidentiality, because if you say something to someone and they go and they tell every and anyone who will listen, sometimes that's like a lack of respect when you share insider or you share sensitive and personal information with people who don't need to know, basically. When you're telling it to people that don't need to know, or people who can, again, use certain things against you, then that's not someone who's trustworthy, because you're not going to feel safe sharing certain things with this person, because oh, it's going to get back to so-and-so or this person or that person. So when you're trying to build trust, you just want to, know who you can share and who not to share with. So that's another thing with building trust. And excuse me. And then consistency, that's another important one, because when they always show up, you don't have to think twice or second guess. You just know that they're consistent with what they're going to do every week. They're doing X, Y, and Z. They're showing up for A, B, and C, and they're for everything in between. You don't even have to think of it. You don't have to remind them. You just know they're consistent. They're going to follow through with it, and they're always going to be on time. You don't have to wonder and guess. So that's very important. And that's also a positive trait when you're talking about building trust. Very important. So, let's kind of recap about those elements of building trust. So there's vulnerability. Of course, if a person's letting that wall down and they're being vulnerable, then yeah, more than likely they feel that they feel safe around you, and they're kind of showing you that, you can trust them, and they obviously trust you if they are letting their wall down. So vulnerability. Then there's also when people are keeping their word. They're actually following through. They're being thorough. You know that what they tell you, that's what they're going to do. What they say, that's what they mean. Very important trait in building trust. Also, consistency. So you know that someone is going to be there. They're going to do X, Y, and Z. They're not going to deviate from that. They're just going to stick to it, and you can depend on them. So consistency, and then there's also confidentiality, knowing that what you discuss with someone is going to stay within that business. What you discuss in a personal relationship is going to stay with that person. That information is not going to just be out there for every and anyone. And also honesty and integrity. We all know that's very important. If you have someone, for example, in business, and let's say they're keeping the books, they're doing a ledger for the business, and you see there's some discrepancies, and you're like, wait a minute, but you told me X, Y, and Z, but this says something else. So, you just may want to keep an eye on that. So, of course, honesty is definitely very important. But there's other things too that go with that. So I just want you to all just think about those things, those elements of building trust. And if there's some that you feel are more important or just as important, leave a comment. Let me know what you think and what your experience may have been, and what are some things that helped you to build trust. So I want to thank you all for tuning in, and you can hear this episode and all other episodes on the Podbean app. You can hear them also on YouTube and on Listen Notes. So again, stay well, be blessed, and until next time. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. You can hear this and all episodes on the Podbean app, YouTube, and Listen Notes. Until next time, stay well and be blessed.